Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this edition of Talking Head. It's Friday, the 8th of March. It's been a busy 2 days, as always, with lots of controversy, lots of BS coming out of the White House, people leaving the White House because they can't stand the toxic dump in the White House and everything else like that. One of the things that the president has been boasting about is how great the stock market is, how great the economy is, and how great he is for making the economy so great. The problem is that according to the latest job report, we only added 20,000 new jobs. This is a disaster. Now, the argument is that the economy is doing so well. This is Trump's version. The economy is doing so well that there aren't enough people to fill the jobs. And so that's why you have a jobs growth so low, is because they're not taking these jobs. I mean, I don't know. But I would say that when you only have 20,000 people, that's not good. And that means that the economy is beginning to subtract or contract. People don't realize that our economy just doesn't slow down like a car does coming up to a traffic sign that it realizes that it has to stop. So it puts on the brakes. Our economy doesn't work that way. It's like a train going 70 miles an hour and knows that in 5 miles, it's going to be at the depot. So it's got to be at 0 speed when it gets to the depot. So it starts to slow down, 6, 7, 8 miles away. So by the time it gets to the depot, it's able to stop. That's the way our economy works. That's the way any economy works. It's slow, unless, of course, you're in a dictator type country, like you might have something like, Venezuela, where the economy can explode overnight and suddenly you have high inflation and everything goes chaotic. But normally economies slow down. They don't go real fast.
Hello, Bill.
Well, hello there. I got your notes. Printed them out.
I got you a whole bunch of notes.
Yes, you did. Now, another interesting.
I see you're talking about the latest jobs report.
Yes, I am.
Well, you didn't give the full picture, to be fair.
Give it.
To just continue that sort of train of thought. The dramatic change suggests that the U.S. economy is reaching full employment. Here's another sign of the tightening labor market. The unemployment rate fell in February from 4% to 3.8%, which is one of the lowest unemployment rates in the past 50 years. The latest job report is also mostly good news for workers. Such a low unemployment rate means that nearly every American who wants to and is able to work has likely snagged a job by now. And then it goes into wages. Wages did keep growing in February, a lot faster than they have in recent months. Private sector workers, excluding farm workers, got an average 11-cent hourly raise in February, adding up to an average of $27.66 per hour. That has only happened 1 or 2 times since Trump took office. In January, average hourly pay only increased 2 cents. But even an 11-cent increase is on the low side considering how well the economy is performing. The average U.S. worker hasn't seen their paycheck get bigger since the Great Recession, which ended around 2009.
Very, very true. By the way, I want to add one thing that wasn't in your notes. It seems that the woman that owned the spa, that
the spa down in Florida, Tampa.
She sold it in 2013, but from 2016 on, she became a big contributor for Donald Trump, and has got pictures with Donald Trump at the Super Bowl. Has got pictures of Donald Trump with his sons.
Perhaps a one-time client of hers.
Well, they could have been, or maybe she was doing private service. Who knows? But the whole point of the matter is, again, an example of Donald Trump hanging around with odd people. I mean, he knew she owned the spa when he met her. Wasn't like, I didn't know what she did. Okay?
And another thing that I saw today happening, which, although I'm an atheist, I still don't think is exactly right, is he was down in Alabama today to pay condolences to the people who died in the tornadoes down there. And he ended up in a church to meet people, and he started signing Bibles. And I mean, that just doesn't sit right with me. I know it's kind of nitpicky and it's a small little thing, but it's like, who do you think you are?
Yeah, but
I mean, I understand some of his supporters put him on the same pedestal as Christ himself, but he's not.
Well, yeah, but what you don't know is that he brought the truckload of Bibles and made sure that they were distributed ahead of time so they had something to sign. Who knows? Maybe it was out of hats. But you're right.
Sign some shirts or something, or whatever.
But the idea of taking a religious, a sad moment, and instead of devoting your time and attention to the sorrow and the pain and the suffering that these people are enduring, you're going around signing Bibles like this is a book signing. Okay, like this is my latest book. Okay, The Art of the Bible. Okay, it's a new book I've written, folks. It lists the new commandments, the way I follow them. Yeah, it's pathetic. It's sick. But then again, this president has no morals. This is another thing, too, and I got to bring this up. He takes things out of context. He's great at this by saying that the judge said that Manafort had not colluded with the Russians. Now, that statement, the way it sounds, is that was what one of the charges were against him. But the truth of the matter is, it had nothing to do with what he was charged with. It would be like taking Michael Cohen and saying that Michael Cohen should be charged with or was involved in a manslaughter case for reckless driving while he was drunk. But we don't take that into evidence when we're talking about a perjury trial. And then turning around, CC.
Well, I mean, just speaking of that, I know we talked about it a little bit off the air, but I think it's a total miscarriage of justice. The sentencing guidelines were 19.5 to 24 years in prison. Did I ever think he was going to get that? No. But to give him less than 4 years for those type of crimes is a disgrace. And, just going over some of the comments and the judge's actions and behavior in the courtroom, it was clear to me that Mueller got stuck with a clearly biased judge. I mean, he was highly critical of the special counsel from the beginning. He went out of his way to try to discredit it, purposely making comments in regards to, this isn't about Russian collusion, which nobody even said anyway. It's mind-boggling that somebody can sell our country out like that and get less than 4 years.
And get credit for the time he spent in jail. Okay? Because he kept violating the law.
He gets sentenced next week for the other stuff, but he can only get up to 10 years for that.
Well,
he's probably looking at, with good behavior and credit served and et cetera, less than 10 years total.
Well, the other thing they were talking about, too, is the fact that somebody brought up the fact that the Russell prosecutor made a mistake. They should have said to the judge, we recommend or we ask for a minimum of 10 years. What they did was say, these are the guidelines, you choose. And of course, the judge doesn't have to take the guidelines.
Mhm.
She could give him 6 days in jail and free him. Okay, or say time served. So they made a mistake by not saying to the judge, we recommend a minimum of 10 years. Instead, they said, well, the statute gives you 19 to 25. So that's what we want you to do. And she decided, or he decided, no, I'm not going to do that. Now,
I think it's a disgrace.
Well, certainly
it says a lot about our justice system. Well, when a woman in Texas, who, by all accounts, accidentally was caught up voting issue as far as her ID, she didn't do it purposely. It was a mistake and was sentenced to 5 years. So she's got 5 years in prison. And a literal traitor to our country got less than 4.
Right. By the way, folks, Devin is right. This is International Women's Day. We should honor them. They deserve to be put on a pedestal, because when you think of all of the services that a wife provides, and I'm not talking sexual, I'm talking about cooking, baking, running errands, cleaning the house, all of these things that these women do and serve in our Congress. It's phenomenal.
Putting up with the bullshit I met every day.
Well, yeah, I mean, they do a phenomenal amount of work, and we don't always want to recognize that. We take them for granted. Like, is dinner ready, dear? Or when are we going to have dinner? Well, I just came from taking the kids and picking them up at hockey and soccer and basketball because you didn't do it like you were supposed to, husband. So I just got home, so you'll get fed when I get ready to feed you. So go in and have a beer and shut up. Okay. Yeah. But women are just, they're not recognized for all the wonderful duty. And of course, you would think that Trump would have made a proclamation honoring women. But of course, it would be difficult for him since he's debased so many of them, had sex with so many, been such a pervert himself. It would be kind of hard to turn around and say, I love women.
I'll be right back, Bill.
All right. So that's where we go there. Now, the House passed a bill to require presidents to disclose their tax returns. Part of campaign financing, ethics, and voting rights. Whether or not it'll go anywhere, I don't know. Probably not, because I can't see the Senate doing their job. Because if they did their job, that would mean that if Trump were to escape the next 2 years and end up running for re-election, and this law was passed, it would apply to him. And the Republicans wouldn't want that to happen, because then we might find out about what's really going on. I mean, it's like anything else. You can lie for so long, and eventually it catches up. And for 73 years, which is longer than Trump has lived, I've watched this man ever since the 70s continually lie. But why do I know this? Because of articles that were in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Business Week. I mean, I would sit there and have dinner and rereading my Business Week, and there would be another article about Trump doing this, Trump doing that, reneging on this deal, reneging on that deal, hiring illegals. Okay? Of course, Donald's attitude was, hey, I'm innocent. If you want to go to the court and prove me guilty, go ahead. But I'm going to make it rough and difficult for you to do that. So rough and difficult that most of you people are going to give up. That's why he got out of paying people for services rendered in his hotels and casinos. Why? Because he simply said, no, the quality of your work isn't good enough. You haven't fulfilled your contract, therefore I'm not paying the balance. And a lot of these were small businesses. They couldn't afford to spend $50, $100, $200, $300,000 in court costs to collect a $20,000 debt. He knew it. So he stiffed them. And he was very proud of this. Okay? Very proud. He's a man with no morals, no scruples. And his house of cards is beginning to fall down as more and more is coming out. And I'm not sure that his base is going to wake up anytime soon. I don't think they will, because I don't think they've got the intelligence to do it. I think that his base is so glued on treating Donald Trump as a god that to them it would be sacrilegious to speak against him. But I think personally, a lot of these people are sitting there saying, what did we get ourselves into? But they don't have the intelligence to figure out how to get out of it. Okay? They don't know how to get out of the mess that Trump got him into and everything else like that. Trump's press public relations director, he's quit. Of course, he's going to put him in his campaign because he's Fox executive. But he's had 6 people in that job. Why doesn't he keep anybody? Because Donald doesn't want anybody in that job. He wants to do it all. He'll be his own press agent. In fact, in the past, he made up a name and then would call the press and tell them that he was John Schmo and promote something that Donald Trump was working on, when in fact it was Donald Trump doing the promoting under an assumed name. Now, how do we know? Because they have copies of the audio tapes. And when you send them through forensic, guess what? They're the same voice pattern as Donald Trump. So they knew it was Donald Trump. I mean, today we know it was Donald Trump that was making this assumption of being somebody else. Again, now you run into this other thing about Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump's clearances. I don't think this one's going to blow away. I think the Senate, or the House at least, is going to investigate and want to know why. Why, with all these red flags, Mr. President, did you knowingly order them to have the highest clearance that a civilian can have? They got a clearance one level below him. Who knows? Okay. Why hasn't the president spoken out on this doctor who's an American citizen, who's in Saudi Arabia being held under no charges? Why hasn't Donald come in and said, hey, you can't do that? He's an American citizen. I'm president of the United States. Why? Because he doesn't want to offend Saudi Arabia, because he's got interest there. He's so afraid that Saudi Arabia is going to say, okay, Donald, we're going to take over your businesses. We're just going to declare them national property. You don't like it? Tough. Okay? He's got them over a barrel. Putin's got them over a barrel. Now Kim Jong is saying, look, I'm going to test missiles whether you like it or not. And he blames Donald Trump for the collapse of those talks. And you know what? Kim Jong is right. Donald wasn't prepared. He was more concerned with Cohen's testimony than setting up a plan and organizing it and having a path forward. See, Donald never has an A and a B plan. He only has an A plan. And when that A plan goes haywire, which happens 99% of the time, he's left with no backup, except to double down on the original plan and claim that it wasn't what he said or wasn't what he meant or whatever. I always have an A and a B plan. That's life. Always have a backup. You don't just simply say, well, I got a problem now. How am I going to solve it? A smart businessman always has a B plan. It may not be the greatest, but at least it's a B plan. But again, Donald doesn't have one. And then again, he lies. He said he had nothing to do with their security clearance. Had nothing to do with it. Didn't even know about it. Ivanka Trump goes on television. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know my father was doing anything. I suppose Jared didn't know anything either. Even though 4 times they kept sending him the forms back saying, you haven't filled them out right. You've left things out. Why? These are the problems. But when you have a corrupt president, when you have somebody that has nepotism, that says, I don't care what I should or should not do, I'm going to take care of my kids. You know, it's like me turning around and saying, I don't care what kind of a jerk Dev is, I'm always going to defend him. Okay?
What are we talking about, Bill?
We were just talking about the president's nepotism toward his son-in-law and his daughter, giving them security clearances and then denying that he ever did it. Hello, TC. How are you today?
Did you cover the House bill?
Yeah, about the filing your income taxes or revealing them.
Yeah, but it's more than just that.
Well, go in. I'll let you do the highlights so I can relax. I've carried you now for almost 7 minutes.
Bill, I gave you all these notes. I always carry you. Okay, so
and it's getting lighter and lighter every day.
I don't know what you said.
House bill. Okay, what I said was this. It's a nice bill. It'll never get passed by the Senate because should Donald Trump escape the next 2 years, then he would be having to comply with the law. And they wouldn't want him to do that.
I understand that. Yeah, it's not just that though. But so the House on Friday passed legislation that would require presidents to disclose tax returns, as Democrats have made obtaining President Trump's tax returns one of their top priorities. The tax return disclosure requirement was included in House Democrats' wide-ranging election reform bill, known as H.R. 1, which passed on a party line vote 234 to 193. H.R. 1 is not expected to receive a vote in the Republican-controlled Senate. Under the legislation, presidents, vice presidents, and major party nominees for those positions would be required to disclose 10 years worth of tax returns to the Federal Election Commission, and that agency would then make those returns publicly available. H.R. 1 actually does additional things just to break those down. You've got campaign finance. So it creates a small donor match funding system for congressional presidential candidates. It expands the prohibition of foreign political donations. It requires super PACs and dark money political groups to make their donors public, and it restructures the Federal Election Commission. And then it goes on to do things like ethics, things as we talked about before, as far as having to release your tax returns. It creates an ethics code for the Supreme Court and bars members of Congress from serving on corporate boards. And probably the most important thing this bill would do is voting rights. So you would have things like allowing citizens to register to vote online and be registered automatically, require paper ballots in federal elections, make Election Day a federal holiday, prohibit voter roll purging, and end partisan gerrymandering by having independent commissions redraw congressional districts. So all those are very important things.
Yep. They look nice on paper, and the Republicans, the Democrats,
it'll never get passed through the Senate or even a vote.
And the Republican
House, even though it should.
And the Democratic House has done their job. Now, of course, we'll get nothing from the Republicans because they'll all sit there and say, gee, This is a great piece of legislation. Let's bury this one because Donald wouldn't like this.
I don't think they're super focused on that. I think they're more focused, the Republicans at least in the Senate, more worried and focused about the voting rights stuff. They're very fearful of anytime you allow more people to vote, to make it easier to vote and to end gerrymandering. Anytime you talk about those things, they don't want to talk about those things. So we'll have to see where this goes, I suppose.
Yeah, it'll go right in the trash heap.
For now, but like they were saying, the one guy was saying that this isn't a, try to pass it and forget it type of deal. It's, work over the next 3 to 5 years on getting it done.
Yes.
Hopefully, we keep at it and we pass some of these things.
Well, hopefully.
No, I heard you talking about the Jared and Ivanka clearances. Yeah. I don't know if you went into depth about that.
Well, you can.
The White House leaked to House Dems on Jared and Ivanka's clearances. From a White House source, the House Oversight Committee has obtained documents related to Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump's security clearance that the Trump administration refused to provide, according to a senior Democratic aide involved in handling the documents. The White House this week rejected the committee's request for the documents on the process for granting security clearances to staffers. The House Oversight Committee in early February had already obtained the leaked documents that detailed the entire process from the spring of 2017 to the spring of 2018 on how both Kushner and Ivanka Trump were ultimately granted their security clearances. Senior Democratic aide who was involved in handling the documents told two staffers on the Oversight Committee said the documents are, quote, part of the puzzle that we would be asking for from the White House. So we appreciate having this up front.
Very true. Trump.
So whoever leaked them, thank you.
Yes. Trump cancels. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I just said that Trump cancels U.S. report on civilian deaths in drone strikes. Again, remember, Donald said he knew more about drones than anyone else. Apparently, he doesn't know that drones can kill by accident and that they file reports and that these reports should be released. Apparently, Donald doesn't know that, but he knows everything about drones. It's weird, but maybe it's an embarrassment.
Well, this was an order signed under Obama in 2016 that would essentially be an annual accounting of civilian and enemy casualties in regards to drone strikes.
Right. And it should be.
I agree. He doesn't care. So he formally ended the requirement with an executive order.
Wasn't this the president that said he would not use executive orders like Barack Obama did?
He's using them like candy.
Well, to him, they're not candy. They're lunch, dinner, supper. You drinking again? God, you got to cut back on your drinking, man. Drink like I do. Pure gin. Pure gin. I said that one time, and somebody came back and said, "What brand?" I said, "Just kidding. It was water." "What brand of water?" I said, "Tap water." "Oh, that's not good for you." I said, "Yeah, water's not good for you. Bacon's not good for you. Cheese is not good for you. Smoking is not good for you. Living is not good for you."
Some of those aren't good for you.
Yeah.
This is some interesting things, though. Trump seeks huge premium from allies hosting U.S. troops. For years, President Donald Trump has complained that countries hosting American troops aren't paying enough. Now he wants to get even, and then some. Under White House direction, the administration is drawing up demands that Germany, Japan, and eventually any other country hosting U.S. troops pay the full price of American soldiers deployed on their soil, plus 50% or more for the privilege of hosting them, according to a dozen administration officials and people briefed on the matter. In some cases, nations hosting American forces could be asked to pay 5 to 6 times as much as they do now under the cost plus 50 formula. And then I added a quote that I read online or on Twitter, and I thought I think it's very true, that this is really an insane condition. The surest way to undermine the United States global military position. We're allies, not mercenaries, and we benefit from many of those military deployments as much as the countries hosting them.
Well, example, whenever we have casualties and they need great medical care, they're sent to Germany. Okay, because we have outstanding medical facilities in Germany, and many lives are saved that way. When you've got people in Turkey, okay, it's Saudi Arabia, you need them so that if you have to have a return strike, you've got a base to operate from. You can't just go into a country and say, hey, we're landing our jets and we're going to take off from your air bases. You have to have their permission. So if you have a base there, basically you have their permission. See, Donald doesn't understand foreign policy. He doesn't understand that you sit down with your allies and say, okay, look, let's talk about money. Let's talk about what it costs and lay out a plan and say to them, okay, let's increase it by 1% a year over the next 5 years. Instead of turning around and saying, hey, you're not paying your fair share. We're supporting you. Well, that's like a parent saying, my God, son, you're 16 years old and 20% of our budget is going towards supporting you. Kid goes, okay. Well, it used to only be 1% when you were an infant. So what do you think it's going to be when I'm 25 and still living at home? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to go and attack your allies without sitting down and having a B plan. Okay, this is the A plan. Start paying more or else. The B plan is let's negotiate. Remember, it was Trump that said, I'm the greatest negotiator in the world. But he never negotiates. And when he does, he fails. Look at the farmers. Do you think they're happy with that trade war with China and watching their soybeans rot because of Donald Trump? Huh? Hell no. They're furious with him.
Speaking of China,
yes,
I read a thing today that said the U.S.-China trade deal remains uncertain. The March summit that was scheduled to happen between President Trump and Chinese President, I don't know how to pronounce that. The leader of China is in jeopardy. They were saying that due to some of the negotiations and also what happened with North Korea, China has become much more hesitant to come to the table without more guarantees. I don't blame them, though.
I agree. I don't blame them at all. I mean, you've got a president that has boasted about being a great negotiator, but he's not. Again, it's another one of his lies. Even the fact that the book, which he takes full credit for, okay, The Art of the Deal, was never written by him. It's written by another guy, and Donald talked to him over a year and a half with ideas. And the guy wrote the book, but Donald takes credit as the author. I wonder how many of those ideas actually were the creator, the author who wrote the story. I wonder how many of them were really his ideas. Donald just took them because he's known to do that. Oh, by the way, don't worry, he's down in Malargo now. He'll play golf because he probably had a great week. And he's going to tell everybody how wonderful things are.
You didn't cover my bulletin points, Bill.
Oh, well, I was waiting.
You got to start with those, and then we go down to the bigger blocks of stuff.
All right, United States Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson to resign. Another person to resign. U.S.-China trade
skip
deal.
the second one because we just covered that one.
Okay. The U.S.-China trade deal. Okay, New Mexico.
Yeah, we got that one.
Stop interrupting. New Mexico House votes to legalize marijuana. So puff away. Bill Shine, Trump's fifth White House communications director, resigned from the White House to advise Trump's 2020 campaign. Maybe he's trying to make sure that they get good coverage on Fox. ICE is detaining 50,000 people, an all-time high. It's funny, the ICE knows that figure, but the secretary, the woman that was there, she didn't know those figures, but ICE knows them. Apparently, they don't communicate.
True.
I mean, even I know what Deb's paying in rent, and I don't live with them. I have all this classified data.
What am I paying, Bill?
I don't want to. I don't want to scare people. I don't want them to know how Section 8 housing. I don't want them to know how Section 8 housing works.
I wish it was that cheap. Although I can't complain. It's $925 total with water included.
Yeah, and he's got a good roommate, so it shares the.
It's a lot of space. It's a really big spot, so it's hard to complain.
But it's
minus the weather. I'm ready for the warm weather to start. Springtime.
I want snow. I want snow. I want to see one big snowstorm giving us 14 inches. That's what I want.
Disgusting. Speaking of North Korea, U.S. analysts say North Korea rocket sites operations have been restored.
Yep.
North Korea appeared to have resumed normal operations at a long-range rocket launch site previously shut down for disarmament purposes, according to analysts. Quote, North Korea has continued the rebuilding of key components of the launch pad in the vertical engine test stand at the Sohae launch facility, returning it to normal operating status. The rebuilding amounts to a, quote, snapback after denuclearization talks between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un ended last week.
Gee, I wonder why. It's just absolutely, as I said before, it's amazing how Donald says, hey, they signed an agreement. He doesn't realize these people don't honor these agreements. A con artist never honors anything. Donald doesn't honor any of his agreements. So why should they honor theirs? They know a con man when they see it. They're saying, hey, we're a better con artist than you are. Kim Jong is laughing. He's going, boy, look at stupid president. Donald Trump. He comes here twice begging to kiss my hand. I write him little love letters. He loves them because it's the only person.
Now, who is this supposed to be? Is this Kim Jong-un or is this
Kim Jong? This is Kim Jong speaking.
Because your accent's all kind of.
Well, that's the way Kim Jong talks. You can't always understand.
This weird sort of Jewish stereotype.
Well, who knows? Kim Jong may be Jewish.
Yikes.
If he were, he would send Jared over there because Jared's Jewish. See, Jared is what they call the sacrificial goat in Trump's administration. He's the one that is sent out to Jewish issues because my son is Jewish. My son-in-law is Jewish. Like that's like saying I'm related distantly to the Pope. Therefore, I'm qualified to handle anything Catholic. Okay. Somebody would say, how related? Well, 17 generations away. Don't think it's that related. But anyhow, then you got Osamar, this renegade Muslim woman who simply doesn't know to shut up. Okay. Every time you turn around, she's saying something inflammatory. Bad woman. She just doesn't know protocol. She doesn't, and nobody can get to her. Nobody can sit down with her. And I'm sure Pelosi has and said, look, you can't do this. You can't keep going this way. We have procedures. You have to learn the rules. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for telling me that. And then goes out and does whatever she wants. And of course, Trump loves it because it gives him somebody else to slam. In other words, he uses her to express his opinion about what he really thinks, but he uses her as the scapegoat. Oh, boy. Never a dull day in Washington. I did hear something else. I understand that the entire front lawn of the White House is going to be dug up. I heard this rumor. They're going to try and take the swamps, the toxic dump, which has now become the front lawn of the White House. They're actually going to try to clean it up as a super fund. They estimate it'll cost $4.5 billion. Trump says he's not going to pay for it. So who knows? Also, people are maybe not be aware of the fact, but lately, if you'll notice, whenever the president has football teams or basketball teams to the White House, he serves them hamburgers, cheeseburgers, a bunch of fast food. Great for the heart, by the way. Just what athletes need to eat, okay? And then what's happening is there's a back blow because some of these...
That, Bill. Imagine you get to the level of play where you're successful enough, you win a championship, you get invited to the White House. That was once a very high honor. And you're expecting, a world-class meal prepared by some of the best chefs, if not in America, perhaps even the world. Definitely 5-star experience. And instead, you're met with stale, cold fast food that you could get anywhere.
Right. Well, this is known as the Trump drive-through. Okay, you just drive through it. Feed yourself up.
I don't get it. I don't get how people are like, oh yeah, he's one of us. Yeah, look at this. This is a true American eating fast food. It's like, I don't know. I just
because because he really doesn't care. Yes, OTC, you're right. He has set that up. He's activating it again. He's going to start shooting rockets. And Trump is going to say, no, those are not really ICBMs that he's using. They're just launching satellites.
We were just talking about that, OTC. In addition to that is a few days after that the meeting fell apart, North Korea released a video where it used footage and other clips to sort of put out a state propaganda film of oh, look how strong our dear leader is. He's meeting with America. Look how powerful he is. And that's what they want.
But that's what he is. I mean, he has now become somebody on the world stage. You can't just ignore him. He's no longer a fly on the wall. Okay? He's now...
I totally agree.
He's now...
We've legitimized him
as
a world leader now.
Thank you, Donald.
We've gotten nothing from him. We've ended the war games with South Korea. We've loosened our sort of stance that, hey, if you're not going to play by the rules, you're not going to sit at the table.
Yeah. He doesn't... Again, the idea is that Donald is so desperate to prove to the world that he's a world leader, but he doesn't know how to be a world leader. The first thing you do as a world leader is you get a consensus among your allies and say, look, if you were in my position as president of the United States, how would you handle Korea? How would you handle North Korea? And then you have these world leaders sitting down and saying, well, I would try this idea. I would try that. I would try this. I would try that. Instead, Donald doesn't listen to anybody. He just says, oh, well, Kim Jong loves me because he says he does. I believe Kim Jong over our intelligence community. I mean, it sucks. You might as well be a foreign agent, Donald, because that's what you are. You're a puppet to North Korea now. You're a puppet to Putin. What are you going to do? Become a puppet for China? Is that your next goal? And then they'll have you all on strings? Oh. Bad. Bad. Just simply bad. All right, we've got another 15 minutes. We've got some more stuff on your bullet list here. White House leaked to House Dems on Jarrett. Yeah, we know about that. Trump canceled report. Okay, Trump seeks huge premium from allies. We went over that. Rocket site operation has now been restarted. Trump's inauguration took money from shell companies tied to foreigners. Is that a surprise? Is that a violation of the law? Is that against the law? Or are we following Trump law, which is anything I do is okay because I'm Donald Trump and you can't touch me? Kind of pathetic. Here's what it says. Donald Trump's inauguration received tens of thousands of dollars from shell companies that mask the involvement of a foreign contributor or others from foreign ties. The Guardian has identified the creator of 3 obscure firms that contributed money to the Trump inaugural committee. Each collected a record $107 million as he entered the White House in 2017. The 3 companies each gave $25,000 to Trump's inaugural fund. At least one of the contributors was made for a foreign national who appears ineligible to make political contributions to the United States.
Just more day-to-day swamp stuff.
Right, and Donald will tell you, I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about what my committee was doing. And yet, it's the same Donald that said, I know everything that's going on in my committee. I'm fully in charge, except when Mueller was selling data to benefit himself to the Russians.
No, you're confusing people, Bill. That was Manafort.
Manafort, rather. Sorry about that. Thank you. He's our fact checker. That Manafort, was making money. Donald suddenly doesn't know anything about it. Like, I didn't know this happened. Okay. I mean, I wonder what he must have somebody, a very bright person on his staff who says, okay, Mr. President, this is what you said the last time on that lie. So if you want to use that lie again, this is where you got to start from. There must be somebody that's the lie detector at the White House that's telling him, okay, you can say this now, Mr. President, because this is what you said the last time. So that lie will make sense with this lie. I don't know. It's just.
Hey, now to be fair, it's not just the president being, outrageous. Some state news is Maine GOP mayor resigns after calling elderly Black people, quote, antique farm equipment. Shane Bouchard, the Republican mayor of the second largest city in Maine, stepped down after leaked emails and texts showed he joked that elderly Black people were, quote, antique farm equipment.
No. You doggone it, you got that wrong. He did not say that. He was talking about, God, where do you get your sources? He was talking about Bernie Sanders, okay, as being an antique farm machine, okay? He was talking about Bernie Sanders. He wasn't talking about Blacks.
Mm-hmm. He was.
But it might as well have been put in the same category, because you got to admit that Bernie is an antique.
Yikes.
Now, I wonder if Bernie is going to come out and say something to him and say, hey, you're making bad news for Vermont, my independent state. You're hurting me. Be nice. Don't do that. I don't think so. I don't think so, folks. I just, every time I do this thing, I find it more humorous because there's just so much crap. I think we should call this the dumpster. Okay, every time we get on the air, it's like the Donald Trump dumpster show. Okay, what asinine things has he done today? What has he done? Much. And the thing is, Donald, you're hurting America. I know you don't care about America. I know that when you're in CPAC, you go over there and you slobber over the American flag like a little 5-year-old kid. Okay? He's tried to hide the fact that he's got to take a little tinkle. So he rushes over to the flag and holds it, trying to hide himself. Okay? The point of the matter is you don't care about America. You care about one person. That's Donald Trump. And you'll throw anybody in front of the bus. Okay? Including Jared. You're going to throw him under the bus down the road. If it gets too hot to handle and you can't lie your way through it, you'll simply tell him he's got to leave. Okay? I mean, you'll come up with some excuse. Okay? And then you'll probably appoint, who knows, your daughter as your personal secretary. I mean, you have to ask yourself, how does a dysfunctional White House function? We find it comical when we see Black on Black or The Orange Suit or some other comedy. We find Married with Children comical even today. Archie Bunker, comical even today, because they were dysfunctional families run by a monarch. And in this case, poor Al Bundy was manipulated by his wife. She ran the house and Bundy just made the money, but he didn't know what the hell was going on. And we laugh at these things. They're funny. A dysfunctional family. But when you have
It's such a weird show.
But when you have a dysfunctional White House, that the president of the United States is the head of it and totally dysfunctional, and he represents us in the world, that's not good. That's sick. Sick. It's pathetic. All right. Well, we've trashed enough tonight.
That's pretty good. We got a lot of things to
You did
discuss.
a great job as always, Deb. And of course, we have OTC there, kind of being the ref. I was a bit away, didn't know. That's okay. OTC. Now, remember, OTC, if you're not going to sit here for the entire 2 hours or an hour of our broadcast, we may have to discipline you. We may have to impeach you. We may have to do something to you to punish you. All right, folks, we're getting ready to leave. We have Chris Como coming on and CNN, and I do want to watch him and everything else like that. But Biden
sounds good, Bill.
Biden in 220. If he ever makes up his mind, okay.
And as always, we always have a standing policy. With big breaking news, we'll be on.
Yes.
But otherwise, we'll be on Monday.
Yes. So you have a good weekend, folks, unless Donald Trump breaks 60 on the golf course because he cheated. We'll probably not be on the air until Monday. But if he comes in with a score of 60 for 18 holes of golf, better than anybody else has ever done, and then walks into the clubhouse and says, I'm the greatest golfer that's ever been in existence. I'm better than Palmer.
And Kim Jong-un's father was like that. I mean, there was that whole thing about him like scoring 4 hole-in-ones in a single round of golf.
Yes. Yeah.
Unthinkable.
Yeah, not only that, but he was also fantastic with killing people. He managed to kill 8 or 9 people in a day. Kim Jong's pretty good at doing that too. Of course, Donald does the same thing, but he doesn't use bullets. He uses Twitter. Okay, that's how he shoots people. Okay, I think if there's anybody that they should take the Twitter account from for misusing it and sending falsehoods and violating the service agreement, it should be Donald Trump. I wonder what he would do if Twitter were to suddenly cancel his account. All right.
Or to suddenly delete his account? Yeah, good idea.
All right, folks. Thank you for being with us. We will see you Monday night, unless, as Dev says, we have some breaking news or anything else like that. So until then, I say, as always, peace. You have a good night, a good weekend. And remember, in God we trust, not Donald Trump. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.